My name is James, and today we'll explore the evolution of micro-segmentation to active defending OT networks. We're happy that you guys are all here to join us for this webinar. Today, we are also joined by two product marketing managers from Moxa Americas focused on networking and cybersecurity. Our first speaker is Marty Wachi. He specializes in industrial cybersecurity, network management, and wireless networking. He has over 20 years in the industry, and Marty has helped launch more than 1,200 networking and security products worldwide. Our second speaker is Felipe Costa. He is a certified ISA and EC Council instructor with more than 30 professional certifications and a master's degree in industrial cybersecurity. He brings nearly 20 years of experience delivering mission-critical cybersecurity solutions globally. And before we begin today's webinar, I wanted to go over some housekeeping items. Today's session will be 60 minutes long with some Q&A allocated at the end as well. You can submit questions anytime during the webinar with that Q&A feature in Zoom. Also, watch out for any poll questions during the presentation. Your input really helps us tailor the discussion. You'll also receive a recording after the webinar, so you can look back to anything you may have missed. And lastly, please complete our brief survey that comes at the end of the webinar. Your feedback is much appreciated. And with that in mind, I'll go ahead and pass it off to Marty to kick off our webinar. Marty.
Hey, thanks, James. Um, let me give you kind of a brief summary, I guess, of what we're going to be talking about. I'm going to start by covering some of the industry trends that are kind of focused on security, obviously, talk a little bit about the Moxa positioning for the products that we have for networking, as well as some of the things that we're seeing from our customers. Felipe, could you maybe summarize what you're going to talk about as far as the microsegmentation part of the webinar?
Sounds good, sir. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Obviously, one of the things that we were going to cover is how we can use in a better way our switchings, right? Or switch in general. This is pretty much one of the most overlooked type of device, and we will see a couple of ways that we can improve concerning security and also performance using in different ways in our strategy, basically the switching. So thanks for that. And I would love to hear, actually, Marty, how actually are the industry trends and how overall, right, we are seeing this cybersecurity landscape evolving during the past years.
All right, well, let's get started. So, for those of you that have probably seen me present in the past, you probably know that I really like this annual IBM cost of a data breach report. Covers a lot of different industries. It's captured trends over the better part of 2 decades. The latest one you can see here. I'm not going to go through all of it, just maybe highlight some of the summaries here. So one of the big questions that I had was, looking at the global versus US cost of the breaches. You can see that there's kind of a big difference there, 4.4 million versus 10 million. And a lot of that's due to a lot of the regulatory fines and things like that that US has implemented that maybe rest of world doesn't. So that's, it kind of inflates the cost a lot. One of the things that I thought was kind of interesting was this was the first year that they really categorized AI data breaches. And you can see there on the left that 97% of all of the breaches that they found really had to do with lack of proper access controls. And it doesn't really mean so much network access controls. It's really people policies and things like that, which is something a little bit out of scope of what we're going to talk about today, but nevertheless is important. When you look at the key findings, I think one of the trends that isn't clear if you haven't kind of been following this is, the top attack vectors. So phishing is still number one at 16%. But what's interesting is supply chain compromises is up to 15% now. I think if you compare that to the previous year, it went up about 4 or 5 points. So if that continues, that's actually going to be the number one attack vector that they're seeing. So that's something we'll talk a little bit about later. We also saw a good thing compared to last year, which is the average time to identify and contain a break now has dropped down to 241 days. Still a long time, but it's a 9-year low. The other thing that was an interesting piece was the shadow AI that I highlighted as well. Again, a little bit off topic for today, but an example of this is really, you're trying to use AI to help you with your job, and you end up taking, internal company data, pasting it into, Chat GPT or something like that in an unsecure manner, and you start sharing some of that internal company IP with some of these AI entities, and that's basically what that kind of refers to. A lot of other stuff, but in the interest of time, let's keep moving on here. So this one here, I think again, if you take a look at comparing this to last year, right? So the numbers are what the numbers are. The malicious attack or criminal attack vector is about 51% still, so that hasn't changed year over year. Our firewall products, our network management products, all kind of address that one in particular. The one that's kind of interesting that went up about 3 or 4% from the previous year, again, is that human error, right? Which you see there, which is now 26%, which is the second kind of largest bucket. That one really you address via automation, and you do that, at a very basic level with network management tools like our MX View 1 or MX Security. You can do more sophisticated AI things, but the more you can automate, the more you take out kind of that human error, right? And you can see they're kind of in the center. It talks about the 276 days to identify and contain a breach, which is still the better part of a year, but glass is half full, still better than the previous year. So that's good news there. Okay, so talking about framework. So not sure what industry you all are represented on from folks on the call, but Moxa plays in a lot of different industries. This kind of is a busy chart, but it shows a lot of the major security frameworks from 62443, NIST 800, NERC. They're probably the most popular ones. You've got some of the E187, 188s that correspond to semiconductor. Really, the message here is that one, Moxa, we've got a lot of different knowledge. The other one is you can see from this chart here that not any one framework covers everything on the chart. And I think the takeaway for you guys here today is looking at that kind of bottom right piece of the table here, right? And regardless of what framework applies to you, this is the quadrant that a lot of the frameworks probably have some weaknesses or may not address at all, right? And this is where we're seeing based on the IBM data, you saw that this quadrant really refers to supply chain, which we saw was the number 2 attack vector, maybe going to be number 1 next year. We saw earlier, human error, automation, network management. Those are the pieces that lower right quadrant really goes after. So if you're using a security framework that doesn't really focus a lot on this is just something to be aware of, that you may need to go out and do some other research, or contact us to see, or your partners, see if we can help you shore up your defenses in this area, because this is where we're seeing a lot of the attacks and exploitations happening. Again, if you guys have questions about any of this, go ahead and put it in the chat. We'll try and answer it at the end. As it relates to Moxa's security solution model, again, this is a slide that I probably cover in all my presentations, but it's definitely worth repeating for anybody that hasn't seen it. So starting at the 12 o'clock position, our secure development. This is really having a secure development process. And this is where Moxa and all of our suppliers, being 62443-4-1 compliant and certified, becomes really important, because you saw that the supply chain attack vector is getting exploited more and more by the bad guys with manufacturing partners. So this is something that having folks like us and others that have taken steps in that area to kind of secure the supply chain to try and prevent the attacks. But if they do happen, that you do have a development process to go and address that. In the 3 o'clock position, we've got the products, which is what we're going to talk about today. Felipe is going to cover that with the micro-segmentation piece, as well as, the firewalls I'll talk about just very briefly. The secure management, that's again the part where the automation comes into play, eliminating the human error. That's an important piece. Doing the education like we're doing today, super important. And then, in the 10 o'clock quadrant, you've got the support and advisories. So for those of you that have been working with Moxa, we've got the 5-year warranty for all of our networking products, free tech support. But more importantly, we've got a whole PCERT team that stands behind the products that address some of the security vulnerabilities that are discovered, help mitigate them, help publish some of those things that you all may be subscribing to take a look at. So if you guys have any questions about this, again, throw it in the chat and we'll take a look at it at the end, but super important. If we had a test question, which we don't, this would totally be on the test. It's super important as a Moxa partner or customer to understand, where does Moxa fit in the overall grand scheme of things, right? Having been at Cisco for many, many years and a lot of enterprise companies, obviously the Ciscos, Fortinets, and Palo Altos have the IT portion of the network covered. They're also starting to cover some of the core and aggregation portions of OT, but where they have fewer products and more gaps, both from a product as well as just affordability perspective, is really on the edge of the network. And that OT edge of the network is kind of where we are very strong, and we'll be talking about some of that today. Keeping in mind that a lot of our networking tools do integrate with a lot of the IT tools there. So the message here on this slide is one of being complementary to those security IT vendors that you're already using. We're not here to try and displace any of them. We're here to give you alternatives and solutions to be able to complement what you already have. So hopefully that makes sense. So one of the things that we're seeing here, the last couple of years, especially me in particular being the firewall product marketing manager, is pretty much post the Halliburton attack. We saw kind of on the left side here, your traditional defense in depth type of network where you had your OT and IT firewalls at the edge. Your containment zone was, what was, segmented by, switches and things like that. But as that attack occurred, and as we started seeing more and more things start happening, and this is also one of the reasons why you saw in the IBM data that the time to detect and whatnot has gone down, is the trend towards moving towards what we're seeing on the right, which is adding OT firewalls more at the edge at levels 1 and 2 of the Purdue model to get closer to those critical assets and segment that out. And in order to do that, you really need kind of 3 things. You need next generation firewalls that can go into brownfield and greenfield environments for OT critical assets. You need centralized management and CapEx, OpEx optimized firewalls. So again, we're seeing a lot of that. Not going to go into a lot of that detail today, but again, if this is a topic you're interested in, throw a question into Q&A and we'll cover that. I think one of the important things that we do want to cover is this idea of total cost of ownership. So whether it's the firewalls that I manage, Felipe's managed switches that he's going to talk about here in just a second, really you've got the Moxa hardware costs, which generally speaking is pretty cost competitive versus the competition. But where that really changes, where we have an advantage, is in the network management piece, right? Where our network management is a perpetual license. A lot of our IT competitors, it's subscription based. On top of that, you can see there on the right that they have, separate hardware and phone support. We both do have IDS, IPS subscriptions. That's really the only networking subscription that we have at Moxa, but that's pretty common. But all of those hardware and network management support costs really add up over time. So that's something that makes it hard to position some of these more advanced OT security devices at the edge because of the expense of all of this that you see kind of in the back. Okay, lastly, on the network management piece that I think is important. So again, we're not going to cover this in a lot of detail, but when Felipe talks about his section, just keep in mind a lot of these tools here, with the exception of MX Security, apply to all of Felipe's products that he's going to talk about. So what we try to do is divide it up into the life cycle pieces that you all are responsible for, starting off with provision and deploying the network. So our free tool, MX Config, helps you do that. Then once it's deployed, you need to monitor, update, and maintain. Our MXV1 suite of products helps with that. You need to do secure remote access. We have the MRC Quick Link Ultra gateway service on our on-cells. For the firewalls, we have the MX Security Policy Manager, which is a big differentiator for us in OT, because a lot of our OT firewall competitors don't even have something like that. But then when you get to the troubleshooting, maintenance, replace, upgrade piece of it, again, MXV1 comes back into play. All of these are perpetual management licenses, so you buy it once and you don't have to continue to pay it on and on.
All right, Marty, thank you for actually lay out all this foundation. So I now have an easy job to take over and kind of to link with a few other aspects, right? So one of the things that we're seeing, definitely the threat landscape is evolving. And I would like to take in exactly that point and take probably a more like a technical spin on this. And this is where I'm going to start, right? So I feel that any single presentation that you guys are probably joining, we're going to be talking about AI and the impacts in different ways. And obviously in cybersecurity, it's not different. So one angle that I like to bring is obviously all the impacts that AI is also bringing in terms of threat landscape to cybersecurity in general. So we are seeing very recently a lot of agents, AI engines being created and automating a lot of the tasks in the past that the hackers used to do by themselves by developing their own codes. And with that, we have like a very concern landscape being created in the past few months and years, where now they are doing a very good job, extremely faster, and even sometimes fully automated attacks going after still a lot of happening in the IT space, but we are starting to see some type of trends also happening in the OT systems. So definitely a very concerned, right, aspect. And another thing that I like to connect is not still the fact that the actors, the bad actors, they are getting more sophisticated, and then now with the help of AI, they can do faster and more complicated, sophisticated type of attacks about any type of target. But also the ecosystem itself, it's getting way more complex as well. So I'm sharing here a couple of print screens from the Dragos, one of their latest reports. So a couple of things that I'd like to bring, right, for awareness today. On my left, basically, you have all the threat actors groups. They are being more organized about it. That we have been seeing more groups coming in the scene, going after OT systems, and they are also exchanging more information. So we're starting to see way more collaboration among them. That is not necessarily something that we have been seeing a lot in the past, but we are seeing more and more happening. So it's not just the fact that they are doing better, faster, and leveraging AI to do their attacks, but also they are collaborating way more among themselves. Another aspect that it's related a little bit about what I want to share in a sequence is the lack of visibility. So we have a lot of, let's say, threats and type of attacks exploring at the well-known fact that we don't have a lot of visibility on the very edge of the network. So this is one of the reasons that Marty kind of started his part sharing that is a concern. We have a lot of reasons why the industry is where we are, but it is thing, right? So definitely this is one of the low-hanging fruits or type of things that we should be looking at, and how we can enhance the visibility in the very edge of the network. So one of the ways, obviously, Marty, we're gonna talk, or he covered a little bit about the firewalls, but we will see how actually you can take advantage of the switches that eventually you already have to help in that task. But anyways, a lot of threats are also evolving and leveraging the well-known fact that we do not have a lot of visibility in the very edge, and it gives them a lot of time to really understand the pattern of the network, try to understand and create a more impactful attack, if you will, on their target. So this is one of also the explanations we're having so long, or take so long quantity of days to really detect that something is happening, right? So and even we are improving based on the Marty just shared. We are taking more than 250 days to really see that something is happening, that's acting funny on my network. So that's a very alarming number. Even we improving, it's still by far from any expectations, right, from the security folks in this webinar. So that said, right, we have all these combinations of factors that are putting all of us in a very unique challenge environment, and all of us, we are definitely doing the best we can to help our partners, customers, to really try to raise and up their game in terms of the threats that are coming after all of us. So another thing that I'd like to give some context, right? This is a kind of a chart that the CISA, right, the Cyber Security Infrastructure Security Agency, that is basically under the Homeland Security, U.S. Homeland Security umbrella. They are, for those who are not familiar, they are very good source of information. They oversees basically all the industry, all mission critical applications, that is obviously where Moxa is also set. So definitely that's a very good piece of data that you guys can definitely check out later. They have this chart where they compare basically historically the attacks that are happening in the U.S. soil, right, after the U.S. industry, and pretty much what is the sophistication that they are kind of seeing. So with that, we're going to see that a big chunk, or the vast majority at this point, that is, this chart is obviously before, right, the AI agency, all the things that we are kind of just discovering, right, the impact. So it's kind of, we are uncovering at this point all the potential impacts. But anyways, right, in that point, we are seeing that basically a lot of, right, the attacks happening in the industry, they were not really sophisticated, but they were leveraging the lack of the basic controls. I'm not coining, but I'm using one of the terminology that many other institutes like SENS Institute and many others, they use like defensible architecture that basically put together all the good practice that we're going to talk a couple of them during the webinar. But the idea is we are doing the basic but important things, right, to make sure we are creating an architecture, a solution. Our system is kind of put in place the measures that are going to make it harder for this type of basic attacks happening. So that said, if we do a couple of things that we're going to be sharing during this webinar, the chances are that we're going to minimize a lot, right, what we call the attack surface. And with that, we're going to minimize the probability on having like these more basic attacks happening in your network. But we should have this on my right, basically where we have the secure level 3 and 4 that are terminologies or definitions coming from one of the standards, 62443, and there it's defined kind of what is the actor behind the attacks, kind of this kind of thing, trying to create like a profile. And these are considered more sophisticated, right? Maybe you have like a national state or very well-funded groups, cyber criminals being behind this. So that type of sophistication we will not cover in that presentation at all, but definitely it's as soon as we are doing the defensive architecture, this is definitely a follow-up step that we should take over in our conversations. And one of the proof that we kind of had this, I know that is not OT related, but I like this example, right? Because it illustrates pretty well. And sometimes we are so concerned with this most advanced zero-day type of exploits. Don't get me wrong, they're extremely important, but sometimes we are overlooking the most basic countermeasures that we should be doing anyways. And here we have the Louvre, right, being kind of hacked through a couple months ago, and they were using one of the actors, right, that they did it. So it was a physical thing, but definitely it was detected that they were using kind of a very simple password. So this is a very good example, right? Although we are expecting sometimes that a very sophisticated place like that would be way more sophisticated in how they go about it, more basic things. We still see things like that. And now imagine back into our industry, right? How many times we don't kind of see the same things happening. So my point is, absolutely, you have a lot of things more sophisticated to be concerned about it. The threat landscape is evolving way more than we expected, for sure. But let's make sure we are doing all these things basic first. So now going a little bit more in how actually we can do it, these low-hanging fruits, and how we can basically improve our game. With a couple things that maybe we don't really think a lot about it. And starting from this, obviously, a lot of the features and things that I will be explaining in the next couple of minutes, they are considering you're using a newer hardware. So obviously, if you have like a more old hardware networking gear or networking switch for maybe sitting for 10, 15 years, most likely all the things that I'm going to be sharing right here, probably you cannot do a lot of things. But considering overall investments or strategy, probably it would be easier you replace your switch than try to change something else, right? So this is pretty much one of the angles that I really like discussing with our customers, because usually you are not doing significant change in your network, but in terms of in how you are breaking, changing, or these kind of things that we know that are kind of more difficult. But just replacing with a newer technology, sometimes I can do way more things in the exact way that I am. So definitely, these are the type of hardwares that we're going to be covering here. Just to give like a more like an overview how we can put this piece together. Obviously, you have the product aspect. You have the development that Mari cover in the first section. What are the things behind the scenes that Moxa manufacturer we do to provide a very good product and make sure that during the life cycle, we will make sure that the product keeps secure and you have all the support you need to keeping right your network up and running in different aspects, including cybersecurity. But one aspect that I would like to highlight here is in the bottom, the integration. So this is where I don't see a lot of conversations happening on the switch side, and how actually we can leverage better this layer, this type of device to support our overall cybersecurity strategy. So this is exactly this portion that I'm going to expand in the next few minutes in how we can be more creative in using this technology. And I
Hey,
feel, hey, yeah,
Felipe,
sorry.
can you maybe just take a moment and just kind of talk a little bit about how traditional micro-segmentation is evolving, if at all, due to some of this active defensive capabilities of these newer managed switches you're talking about?
No, sure. Thanks, by the way, for the question, Monty. I feel that is one of the things that we are going to elaborate in the next few slides. But usually we consider, right, when we talk about segmentation, uh, usually, right, from with the interactions that I have with a lot of people, it seems like that they have an understanding that all the segmentations that they are equal. So if I'm doing segmentation, most likely I'm going to have the same results because all of them probably I'm gonna deliver it on the same way. And that is not 100% true, right? Obviously, you have different ways to do segmentations. All of them indeed are going to be segmentation, but you're going to have your pros and cons on doing segmentation. So I feel that this is one of very interesting way that we're going to explore today is, how actually I can, right, better use the technology that I already have to actually do some type of segmentation. Maybe it's not the ideal or the most sophisticated, but actually it's already improving, right, my overall strategy or my overall way to go about cybersecurity. So thanks, by the way, Mark, for the question. So I feel basically to illustrate this, I like to choose this example. Usually take any topology, right? I see probably topologies, half of my day I'm looking for some type of topology in conversations with customers and partners. So most likely, right, you're going to receive something like that. When you compare the quantity of device, firewall, you're going to have some handful number of device. When you're lucky, probably one, two being considered, but that's it. Okay? We don't have a way more space in the industry today being using basically firewalls. Although we should be doing more like that, this is definitely one of the things that Marty explains why the challenge we have. So if you have the interest to understanding how we can do more, right, and combining also the investment, the budget, and all these other things that are more business related in general, but if we don't have it clear, we actually don't have how to really implement it, right? So I do recommend you guys put in the chat or look after our team that we are more than glad to explain how we can combine the business and the technical aspect in these additional layers of segmentation. But point is, we are going to have always way more switches than you have firewalls. So usually, right, we expect way more from a firewall than a switch in what I can do about security. So it's a trade-off. I'll have more points, but I cannot do a lot about it. So my conversation and my angle here is what I actually can do, consider that I have a lot of points, a lot of switches. What actually I can do with these points to help somehow my security strategy, right? To help these other firewalls, to increase the visibility, to increase the monitoring and other things that we are lacking today. So this is going to be basically the angle that we're going to take today to go with you guys. And to better understand this, I'm using one of the slides from Idaho National Laboratory, as known as INL, right? They are also really connected with CISA and many other governmental organizations in US. And I really like this because actually on the left side, you're going to see that we have the triad that we usually allot in many conversations, right? Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. But this is very good connection and conversation points when we are interacting with IT. So this is why I'm considering, although not a lot of people like the terminology, right? The IT-OT convergence, but it's just to make a point that is where we have this higher connectivity or conversations happening, right? Among between these two parts. But if you go way right on the edge, you're going to have something else happening right there in terms of priorities and how we should be thinking in terms of the system operating. And these things usually are known as safety, reliability, and performance. And we are seeing a lot of those type of conversations happening, right? The CRT type of thing. So it means that actually, as I'm going lower on these segmentations and conversations happening, I still need to be considering. I still need to consider the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. But I also, in that point, I also need to consider these other aspects in my equation. So it's not just about these three. I also need to consider safety, reliability, and performance. How all these six aspects from now on, I should combine in my strategy. So you are seeing that this equation is getting really complex, right? And this is, I believe that we have a huge gap and have conversations happening today. We will explore way more in the next slides, but if I could like lay out this overall discussion, is we have this cyber domain, if you will, where we talk a lot about the segmentations features that are related to 62443 that I'm just naming a few of them. We covered these. If you don't remember or you don't have you don't know these features yet, feel free to reach out to our team, right? Or put some questions here in our chat. But obviously, we have a lot of things that we can do in these new switches in terms of this first domain underneath the cyber domain IoT. So we can do like some type of controls, MAC address. We have this type of protection and how your firmware is up and running that we call security boot. We are coming with this dynamic VLAN assignment that helps in overall segmentation. So we have a lot of things actually already on the product that, by the way, like Marty mentioned, we don't charge for these new features. So every time that we come with a new feature, this feature is actually available for all of your customers without additional cost. So this is what we call OT, right? Operational expense, so OPEX. So we don't have this cost in our switches and technology. That's huge. I had a conversation yesterday with customers that actually they were saying, hey, I'm really struggling, right? Because this is a huge part of my challenge. And when I explained that Moxa, we don't charge for this, it was a really helper. But moving a little bit on the second topic, that hey, I do have a lot of logs that we call syslogs that are more connected to your cybersecurity let's say tools. So maybe you have some CM, some SOC, Secure Operation Center, and so on. So in some point, if your industry, your system is evolving, you're gonna hear these names happening. So syslog is a kind of log that communicates with these more sophisticated or more specific, right, OT security systems. And we have the third one that are what I'm calling advanced layer 2 response, that are things that actually I can enable on my switch that actually can help me minimize all these more let's say basic type of threats that are trying to disrupt your network with DOS, or trying to explore the most used protocols like GACP or even ISP, right? IP kind of spoofing. So we have a couple of attacks that are considered techniques that are used. And honestly, it's a much broader conversation that we would love to have with our customers. That basically is actually which threats, right, you should be looking at, which sector you are in. So it changed completely, right? The techniques or the groups that are going after. But anyways, the most common type of techniques are probably you can help minimize these threats using these advanced features. And again, they are available in the switch itself. But lastly, the fourth topic. Hey, we do not have a lot of conversations happening on these two domains combined on your conversations, right? So this is where we definitely want to make sure that when we have a conversation about cybersecurity, we are not ignoring, right, all these other aspects that are important. So the safety, reliability, and performance. So we have a lot of the things and value propositions that we can help combining these two domains in just one single strategy, right? And if I can expand a little bit, what Marty presented at the beginning, you have basically different sizes of a network. So maybe for smaller networks like the basic, you can just improve the switch like I explained, and you can enable all these features that I mentioned, and we are already upping your game. You're minimizing threats and vulnerabilities, right? That can be exploited in your network. So that's good, right? That's this is the better. That's the best you can do with the resources that you have. So that's definitely things that we are talking here. We are not expecting to be perfect, but we're expecting to improve our strategy and what we are doing in terms of security during the time. In the middle, we have these small networks that sometimes we have a handful number of devices that maybe you can use just a firewall to do everything, right? Combining switchy and firewall in just one device. So we're seeing way more things happening in that direction. But lastly, right, this larger and most complex network, unfortunately, you cannot do just with firewalls, right? So we need to combine more firewall and switching combine how actually I can leverage these different technologies with the respective limitations in cost and performance and everything that we kind of went over a couple of minutes before. So this is the thing that we are discussing way more lately, right? And here I would like to expand a little bit on this. So one of the things that we talk usually in separated or segregated conversations is the reliability and performance. So we have a feature that's called tuber ring and tuber chain. If it's something that you have the interest, you already heard, and you have been trained, please reach out to our team, and we'd love to have like a deep dive in how it works. But in this high level, right, summary, is basically a technology that if you have some sort of a problem in one path of communication, it automatically will detect that some communication is not happening, and it will enable another path to keep the communication going. So with that, I have this increase of reliability in a very short amount of time, right? We are talking here usually about 20 milliseconds. That's a very reasonable number for the majority of industrial applications. So definitely, these are the sort of things that usually when you're talking about cybersecurity, we don't really include a lot about this topic, and we should be talking more about this. And this is the whole thing that we are trying to go over with all of you today, right? And how actually are you talking about this? Are you talking about high availability on your network? Are you talking about how taking the most of your networking devices? So these are the things that experts like us we're going to help you, right? Make sure that your design is considering all the things that maybe you are overlooking, right? You are not in taking the most of it without actually putting more investments on it. Just to give a comparison, one of the most common type of protocol that does the same job, it's called rapid spanning tree. And usually the time you're going to vary. It's way more variables than we're speaking here, but you have some type of number of nodes or hopes, and you have some tunings that you can do, but usually you're going to take a couple of seconds, luckily, right? If I have like a medium size network to make the same convergence. And when you compare, right, this time that can basically range from 20 to 50 milliseconds, according to the media or the speed you're using, definitely it's way faster, right? So this is one of the ways that we can improve your game, improve your strategy, right? Combining these domains of performance and cybersecurity. Here's an example, right? That trying to put these two pieces together is an example of conversations that we have with our customers. So on the top, you're gonna see, let me basically take my pointer to help you guide you guys here. So here we have like a ring, right? Using one of our technologies to really help basically with the redundancy and reliability, performance of the network. And when you go down for what we call zones or applications, right, that are silos, basically doing different jobs inside your factory or your application, here we are working with segmentation. That's also good, connects with everything that we just explained. We are minimizing or shrinking the attack surface. We are increasing the visibility and knowing what's happening very close to the edge. But look at that. I also have here some sort of redundancy ring as well, helping, right? If I have some type of issue, I kind of recover and operates either under, let's say, no ideal circumstance. So that's another way to help on your cybersecurity strategy. Ultimately, we are looking for performance, right? We want to be secure, but security is all about you keep operating, right? The hacking, ransomware, and many other threats that are outside. Ultimately, what they'll be doing they will be trying to jeopardize your operation. So ultimately, when we try to raise your bar in security, when we're talking about performance, we are trying about production and keep it running. So it's actually, they are not different things. And this is, I believe, we have this huge gap of communication between these different parties, right? Definitely what we're looking for is how actually I combine my conversation, how I put together everybody on the same page. And this is exactly what we expect. Combine these aspects on the same talk and make sure the industry or our customers, they are actually considering all the boxes that they should be doing, right? So we have now a quick basically question for you guys to just help you understand or help us understand better our audience. So feel free to share which type of protocol are you guys using in your network. I'm gonna give you a couple of extra seconds to go it. Okay, maybe more to 3 seconds. I'm seeing a lot of RSTP, like we covered. Turbering turbochain means that you guys are already using our product. That's great. We're seeing some sort of in a low and a low response, but we have a couple of proprietary protocols and other ones, and also a very common one that we did not cover here, but is a kind of along the same page or the same lines of RSTP. I believe we're good team with our response. So definitely our most common protocol is RSTP, like we kind of approach. And definitely the second one, based on our audience, is our turbering turbochain. So basically, we are going in the same direction, right? Definitely, we are combining already these protocols in our conversation. So that's good. Moving forward, I just want to make sure you guys you are understanding the overall strategy right here. We need a way more visibility, right? So we are talking about features, we are talking about the product itself, but Marty closed with on the slides that explains about the life cycle. And the life cycle, it's extremely important, right? But in some point, you want to have visibility of what's happening on network. So this is where what we call NMS, network management softwares, are going to help us to really understand and have visibility about first which products I do have there. Even that's it's probably one of the most questions that we receive is, can you see devices that are not Moxa, right? Yes, we can. We are limited what we can do and what we can see, but at least we can see them. So it helps us actually create this foundation, and now we can start having a conversation about, hey, now how can I improve this, right? But first, I should understand what I have. So this is why I cannot really emphasize enough the importance on having in any network that you guys may be having using the usage of the network platforms. And honestly, Marty can maybe talk the whole day about it, but the investment is not that significant, right? We have a really a strategy that can help you combine our solutions, right? Software, and make sure you are performing, but without jeopardize your budget, etc. So we do consider this. Just a few other aspects as we are running to the end of the presentation, but just make sure I'm at least mentioning. You have like the physical communication, the layer one, right, Aussie model, where it's happening, the communication. So sometimes if I need to troubleshoot, takes a lot of time. This is also performance. Remember that although I'm a higher cybersecurity expert, we should not actually have different conversations. Performance is extremely important for all of us that are inserted in the industry, right? So the fact that I can see the how is my link, how the health of my link is extremely important. So I want to make sure that I have this visibility and it's already integrated in the platform. The other thing is the bottlenecks of communications. As we can have just a presentation about this. ITOT next webinar, we're gonna probably take more look on this. AI basically gonna bring, it's bringing already the need for more data, right? So if I need more data, can I actually my network really accommodate this additional data? There is any eventual bottleneck that I'm creating that actually can jeopardize the performance of my network. And if you don't have visibility, you just cannot answer that question. You just are gonna realize that you have an issue because you have some link is down. So this is exactly the reason we are combining the visualization, the bottleneck, the usage of each link to help us to make these more anticipated decisions and helping me, again, increase my performance without opening right additional risks in terms of security. Again, I'm combining these two different domains on the same strategy. And here I have a quick example. This is more specific for power industry, but this is one of our switches, right? Being they have a specific capability, as it's not a specific energy or power webinar. I'm gonna mention, but we have a protocol that's called GUSI, right? That's truly important inside substations that uses 61850. That is basically Ethernet inside substation. And here we're emulating a simple attack, trying to change right one of the specs GUSI inside the network, and the switches themselves they can detect and say, hey, something happened. I'm not saying about a firewall, right? I'm speaking about a switch itself has the capability to detect, hey, this protocol actually was changed, right? Something is funny, should not be happening, and we can flag that. So this is one of the examples of the very sophisticated or really more security specific features happening on the switch layer, right? Going more right to the end of it. I don't know, Mario, do you have a question here?
Yeah, could you just really quickly summarize, a lot of our customers' primary concern is uptime and reliability. How would you
Right.
summarize how micro-segmentation impacts these goals?
Yeah, uh, I feel that actually that's a good time, right? The slide here try to put together exactly that question. But I feel that it usually when we talk about segmentation, we in general we overlook the part of performance. We are more concerned about I need to have security, right? I need to have these things happening. And it's important. We are seeing a lot of bad things happening, right? But my call to action to all of us that are in that industry is should not be a different conversation. You should use first, right, the concept itself in your conversation. So every time, are you considering um, in your segmentation conversation, are you considering the performance and reliability, how actually you can improve this aspect of your segmentation? So like we started, not all the segmentations they are equal. Not all the segmentations are going to consider all these aspects, right? Because we have so many technologies and so many ways to go about it that actually it's a good question for all of you guys that are having conversations, or if you are the asset owner, actually you ask yourself, I'm actually considering, right, on my end this. So one way to try to put all this piece together, and thank you again, Marty, for your question, would be actually the switching, right? I feel, right, it's probably suspect I'm saying about this, but I do believe that's a very overlooked technology. Usually we consider it in it, I did that with my intention, right? We consider this basically a black box. I don't really care about it. I know that I'm switching or I'm sending packets or frames, and that's it. This is what should be done. And definitely it was true that they have been considering a black box for a long time. But however, considering all the threat landscape, all the things that are changing right around all of us, we should not deal with just a black box. As we saw, we have way more things that we can consider. And that's a very strategic place that they are inserted, that are connecting. They are connecting exactly these two domains, ITOT and the very edge of the network. So they are very strategic actually. So who actually you are talking with, how you are selecting your networking provider, and actually how actually you're leveraging all these capabilities are extremely important, right? So this is why I do believe that's an important aspect that all of us should be using way more. And I do would like to invite all of you, right? If you have these questions in how actually you can do, how actually we can improve your current network, right? We are now sending a question for all of you guys. Which discussion topic you would like to have, right? And our team, depending, right, the region, etc. Maybe myself, I can travel and have a conversation. We can have a lot of conversations. I would love to understand your challenge, but definitely I would love to have more visibility, right, about your own challenge, because I do believe that we don't need really to do crazy things to improve our game in terms of cybersecurity. I know that we are heading already to the end of this webinar. I'm suspect I love to talk about cybersecurity. I love to talk about networking. So this is why it's not end, right, for all of us. If you guys want to keep that conversation going, we would like to definitely share a couple of ways that that conversation can keep happening. I appreciate you guys sharing, right, your interests. And I would like to leave an invitation. So after this summary slide, right, I just want to make sure that if you need to keep, right, three things. The first one is not all segmentations approach are equal. They are not. So make sure, right, you are doing the right questions, and we are having on the table the right people to help you understand all the aspects that you could leverage the same technology, the same strategy, but now improving and taking the most of it. Second, right, switching should do way more than just move packets. This is their job, but definitely, as you saw, we have different ways that we can help security and performance, and maybe you are overlooking those. And the third, we should not have conversations segmented or separated about IT, OT, and or cybersecurity and performance. Should be the same conversation, because ultimately you saw that they are eventually using the same product. How I actually can have different conversations. I should actually connect, right? So the same way that, unfortunately, right, the bad actors, they are getting better communicating among themselves. This is the same way that we should go about it. Is we should better communicate internally of our organizations, but also in how our partners, solution providers, and like us, we can better support you, right? So if you don't ask, you'll never know. So that said, I would like to make an invitation. If you guys want to have more deep dive conversations, we are more than glad to sign NDAs and have this more appropriated approach for sure. We have what we are calling solution days that are basically, we have different experts. If you are energy, if you are in oil and gas, so we have different, let's say, capabilities and a very talented team here to support you, right? And I'm luckily, maybe I can be one of them as well, flying or have conversations with you guys about your topology. If it's you want to have this type of sort of conversation, we have this QR code, and it's secure. I know that's a kind of comment that we need to do nowadays. So it's good. You can scan this barcode in the top of your page, and you're going to be linked to a page where you can select which topics. We just shared here a couple of options. But if you have a way, maybe a more specific topic, you also can let us know. And one of the team members are going to contact you, and you're going to try to understand the best time to do it. That said, I do have a last slide, right? That is, if you want to have this contact, we will not share the information, so be free to really just let us know. And I believe we're really kind of short in time, so I don't know if you're gonna actually be able to answer right questions. But if it's you send questions in Q&A, we were gonna come back to you later, right? If it's some questions, myself and Marty, we are more than glad to connect with you and answer, contact you, and go over about your questions. But with that, I would like to invite James and Marty back in the few minutes that we have left. And I'm going to leave open, actually, if you guys don't mind, the solution day page. So if you guys have the interest, right, to contact us, probably it's the best way to do it. So James and Marty.
Hey, Felipe. Yeah, thanks. I'll go ahead and leave that poll up. We won't share the results of that, but it's just to collect some information if you guys do want to continue that conversation, as Felipe mentioned earlier. So I'll go ahead and why don't we jump into the Q&A? I do have a question here. Um, I don't know if you guys can see the question, Felipe and Marty, but it's kind of a long one, so I'll
Yes.
try and read.
Yeah, it's a long one. I'm seeing right now. I don't know, Marty, if you already had the chance to read it. I'm trying to go through in the time
Yeah,
that we have.
so
Why do I
I would
read it for everyone on the webinar? So the question is from a design and architecture perspective. Could you explain whether Moxa switches or routers certified at 62443 security levels can function as a self-contained cybersecurity system?
Hmm, hmm,
Specifically, is it feasible for them to form an independent security boundary
hmm,
and
hmm,
enforce
hmm.
security requirements for other OT systems, even without
Understood.
upstream security devices such as firewalls or IDS?
Yeah, yeah. That's a great question. I'm gonna try to make a short version of the answer, but more than glad to take more a long shot. The answer yes, right? It's not ideal. It's not ideal because actually we're gonna see that you can do segmentations in different ways. So the fact that actually I have the certification security level 2 and 3 in case of our switches, they are certified security level 2, meaning that basically I can contain a kind of a basic intentional hacking. Um, Actually, I can act right as a segmentation. The standard itself, the 6043, does not really enforce specific technologies. The standard enforces or recommends the usage of a means, right? So you can do it different ways, even doing ACLs and all of that. So compliance is different of security, right? So in terms of compliance to your question, yes, I can do basically with switches, and basically this is my first example of a basic security scheme. But definitely my question would be, it's definitely the best we can. It's fine, but I would say that we could go and try to improve this a little bit more. But yeah, we definitely can use switches as a start point. A good question.
Anything to add, Marty, to that one, or Felipe covered?
yeah, I mean in the question he'd asked switches or routers. So our routers and firewalls do
Oh yeah,
have IDS, IPS in them.
that's
So
good.
if you were to use them in conjunction with the switching that Felipe is mentioning, you would be able to do almost all the
Absolutely,
things that your upper
absolutely.
layer firewalls and stuff could do because we do have the deep packet inspection, the IDS, IPS, and that's why we're actually seeing those devices deployed more at the edge. So good
Right.
question.
That's a great question. Thank you, by the way, Marty. That's good. That's good.
And I will just we will answer a couple more questions, but I will mention that we are at the time, so we do understand if you do have to drop out, the recording will be available for everyone. But let's go ahead and get a couple more questions in. Here's one. I have an existing network with IT controlled subnets. Is there a way I can add additional security to our network without having to involve IT?
I believe
Yeah,
that's
so
more
I
to you,
think
Marty.
there's
Yeah.
two ways you can do it. So obviously, Felipe talked about using switches, updating them, getting some of the newer securities. So that's obviously one option that you get. The other one that we're seeing again a lot of is deploying our firewalls in what we call bridge mode, which means you can drop them into an existing network, not change IP subnets or VLANs route or NAT or any of those things, hence the word transparent, get all the advantages of the deep packet inspection, the IDS, IPS in your existing network topology. So it's that brownfield kind of message I was talking about earlier. A lot of customers find that very attractive, especially on the OT side.
Thanks, Marty. Here's another one. I have a multi-vendor switch network. Can I leverage Turbo Ring or Turbo Chain?
Yeah, I can take that one. You can, it varies obviously in how they are connected, obviously, but tuber-ring, tuber-chain, we have some capabilities that actually you can work with this RSGP, for example, right? But obviously, we're going to need to understand better your topology. Sometimes, if we can even make some tweaks here and there to make sure we are taking the most, right, without compromising the performance of the network. But yes, usually we have a couple of ways that we can interact with RSTP.
Awesome, thank you. How do I find out more about Moxa firewalls?
That's for you, Marty.
So if you signed
Yeah.
up for any of the questions on contacting us, we can follow up with a solution day or discuss a project. We'd love to talk to you on that one.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then I just have one more here before we close up.
Yeah.
Are there any training or certifications available to learn about these network equipment? What do you recommend for someone who wants to configure this type of equipment?
Yeah. I can start, and Marty, please feel free to take over. I'd say, please, I believe the first step is sending your information. It can be either on the signing, right? For I have the interest for next conversation and or in the solution day, and we're gonna have your information, and we can better understand, right, the needs. But we definitely can create some sort of hands-on or training that is tailored to our needs.
Awesome. Yeah. So if you to who asked the question, if you did request to be contacted from one of the last or the last poll question that we had, we will be in touch and we can always continue that conversation. And also, I will say that after the webinar, you'll have a follow-up email sent to you. Go to the landing page there on the on-demand webinar. There's a contact form. You can also reach out to us that way too. I think let's go ahead and wrap it up. We're about 5 minutes past 12 right now here on the West Coast. But like I said, a follow-up email will be going out with the recording, and you can revisit any of the points that we talked about today. Thank you so much, Marty and Felipe, for your valuable time and all the information that you shared with everyone today. When the webinar ends, there will be a brief survey. We would love it if you could give us your feedback on how everything went. We appreciate everyone's time. Stay tuned for the next webinar.